Tracy, thank you so much for being here to share your story. So, you and your husband Tom are foster parents, and today we're going to get into that story. And we're also going to dig into Cece's story. She is your most recently adopted child. So, thank you for being here to talk about that.
Thank you for including us and inviting us to share our story with you.
Absolutely. So, could you introduce us a little bit to what your family dynamic looks like?
Sure, our family dynamic is one based off of a lot of faith and a lot of hope and a lot of love. So Tom and I decided to become foster parents years ago. And in that time, since we've been married 20 years now, we've fostered 10 children. And of the 10 that we fostered, we've adopted 6 children. So we recently adopted a little girl back in October, and so we have our daughter Hannah, and she's 19, and then there's Mario, who's 17, and Samira, who's 15, and Nayeli, who's 13, and then Emma is 12, and then sweet little Cece is just almost 21 months old.
Awesome. Can you talk about making that decision to become foster parents?
Sure, it's kind of an emotional one for me. So I am a cancer survivor. So I had cancer 21 years ago, and that led me to not be able to have children. And I always just wanted to be a mom. And Tom had just proposed. And the next month, I was having a pretty serious surgery at the Mayo Clinic, and I think I'm only here today by the grace of God and by an amazing team of doctors to save my life. But I always wanted to be a mom, and so we just had to go through that process of just healing through the grief of not being able to have children of our own, and then being open and welcoming to children, unfortunately, that do not ask to be born into the life that they're born into. And more than anything, they just long to be with their birth family and to be normal like other children. But welcoming these beautiful kids into our home has been such a blessing.
What have been some of the hardships that you have encountered through fostering?
Trauma is really deep, and the wounds of what these children have endured and faced is painful. It's a lot, and they say for every 1 year a child experienced trauma, it takes 3 years of healing. So it's a journey. It's a long, long journey, but it's happening.
So you have adopted several children, but today we're focusing in a little bit on Cece's story. What did Cece's journey look like starting out?
So in 2015, her siblings came to be with us. They were separated in foster care. And it was always heavy on my heart to reunite siblings that were separated in foster care so they could grow up together and be in the same home. And her 3 siblings that happened to them. They had been separated in foster care for over 2 years, and they only got to see each other about every other month for about an hour. And I just think to myself, how can this be that we have a system that would allow that to happen? And all these years later then, flash forward to 2 years ago just about, birth mom to our 3 adopted children had a precious little baby girl. And so the children sat down next to me and said, Mom, she has to come be with us. She can't go through what we've been through. We need to protect and keep her safe. She needs to come be with us. And so we began the part of trying to find her because the county that she came from never did child find to figure out where the other 3 siblings were. So she was born addicted to drugs in the NICU and was placed in another foster home that was also a licensed pre-adoptive foster home for her. And so our wonderful, caring adoption social worker went to bat for our family and found her. And then with 12 hours notice, I got a phone call at 6 p.m. on April Fool's Day saying, if you want this child, she can be at your home tomorrow at 2:10. Like, who comes up with 2:10 in the afternoon? But I said, okay, sure, fine. And so I'd never had a baby. This is like an amazing opportunity because I could never carry and have our own child. And I looked at Tom and he looked at me and okay, here we go. And so thankfully Amazon delivers, next day. So I drop shipped the crib and diapers and, everything just like came. And the delivery from Amazon showed up at 11 and she came to our home sick. She came to our home so sick. She was coming off of being born addicted to drugs, so she was shaking. But she had a horrible, horrible, horrible cold. And social services said, you're going to have to take her straight to the emergency room. And I'm home with 5 kids, and Tom looks at me, and I said, I have no history of anything. And so he took her, and Tom just got the car seat, and Mario was installing the car seat in the van, and we had never put a child in a car seat before, so we're putting her in, and Tom just took off to the emergency room with her to help her get into our home. And for the first 2 weeks, she was so sick, I had to sleep with her, holding her upright because she kept coughing and needed that constant support just to breathe.
I'm sure most of these children come into your house without knowing who God is. How do you teach who Jesus is in your house and keep that as a constant part of their fostering journey?
This is something I think we all struggle with, and we all wish we could do more with, but we keep God in the center of our life and with the children through prayers and seeing those sweet little hands of Cece's praying before meals and making sure everybody else is praying at 20 months is just amazing. But, morning prayers, evening prayers, devotionals, those quiet moments. But I honestly just love the Christian radio station that I have softly playing in the background all the time. He's just always present and with us. And we've been able to bring our children to faith through Victory Kids here at church has been such a blessing. And then also through the confirmation and the teen program has been phenomenal. And I just hope that can continue to grow and flourish because there's so many outside influences in our children. And if we can really support the church and helping to reach the youth, because the youth are the future of the church.
How long were you fostering Cece before adoption became an option?
We started the process immediately when she was placed with us, and then it just has to play through the courts. And so she was 20 months old when she was adopted, which is honestly record time with the courts. And they really want a child to be adopted before the age of 2. But this case, thankfully, was a pretty simple case to move through the courts, but it can be long and complex too.
Can you explain Cece's adoption day and what happened after she was adopted?
When we were in the courtroom going through the testimonial and the swearing in and all of those pieces, the thoughts that kind of ran through my mind is, well, we're finally here. And it was quite a journey to get here. And I'm so thankful it's here. But, it's just those pieces where for 20 months, it's on your mind, like, is this going to happen? When's this going to happen? How long is this going to take? And, there's social services involved. There's home visits. There's all these doctor's appointments and outside people and, all the supports that come with a foster placement. And then the moment that the adoption happens, those supports just fall away. And then it's just your family and moving forward.
Can you explain the excitement from the rest of your family members and even the other adopted kids?
Yeah, I think all along for our children, welcoming Cece into our home has been such a beautiful, beautiful thing to witness because all the children feel like Cece's their sister. It's not this sibling group because we have 2 different sibling groups in our home. It's not this sibling group or that sibling group. It's Cece's family, right? So like it's a sister to everybody. And all the children have such a beautiful and special bond with her. And it's it's just phenomenal. I mean, it's definitely a God thing, and to see his hands and his motions and his actions and his faith in us to be the parents that Cece needs, to be the parents that all the children need. They couldn't wait to see her adopted. They couldn't wait to just for it to be final, and to know that security is just there for Cece and the family. And her siblings, we adopted and did their baptism on the same day. And so as soon as they knew we had an adoption date, they said, well, she's being baptized the same day. Like, this is going to happen. This wasn't Tom or I. This was all of them. We made it happen, and we came to church here with our, just close family and friends on a Thursday afternoon, and had her baptized and celebrated.
Right after the adoption, you had posted some pictures of Cece online, and you had mentioned in your post this feeling of belonging. Can you explain that a little bit?
The feeling of belonging, I think, for anybody, the connection, right? Connection to faith, connection to family, connection to community is huge. And if we don't have that sense of belonging somewhere, that sense of connection to someone or something, people struggle. And life can be very hard if you're doing it alone. And so, how do we wrap our loving hands around family? How do we wrap our loving support of friends, of congregational members in times of need? Like, what can we do to help someone feel that they belong, that they matter, that we see them, and that they're heard? And oftentimes, I guess I've just always been pulled in the need of foster children, because oftentimes they don't have that sense of belonging. They don't have that sense of, I matter, because my parents couldn't do for me what they needed, and now I'm in the foster care system and I'm not where I want to be, right? They're pushed into a system where they need to be for their safety. And unfortunately, a system that necessarily isn't the best. I mean, people are trying to do the best, but at the end of the day, it's a job, not many careers in foster care, if that makes sense. And this is a tiny little human life. And so how do we best support children in foster care? And that's by helping them feel like they belong and that they matter.
That's incredible. What does it mean to you for Cece to now have her forever home, not only with a family here on earth, but also her forever home with Jesus?
Cece has been a member of our family from the moment she walked in our door. And a beautiful, beautiful child that God has given us to care for and to love and to raise and show God's love for her day in and day out, and teaching our other children too the sense of patience and peace and understanding. And now we're in the toddler phase of a 21-month-old almost, and what that's like to have a little bit extra patience because she's trying to communicate a need. And it draws me back to right after Cece came to be with our home. One of our children, teenager, came to sit down in our back living room area and said, "Mom, I need to talk to you about something." And I said, "Okay." And I'm holding Cece, and she just fell asleep, and we're just quiet and peaceful. And this child just broke down and started sobbing and crying and almost like hyperventilating crying. And I thought to myself, oh boy, what's going on? And that's when the child just said, "I can never thank you enough for bringing her here, because she will never go through what we went through as kids, and she will always be safe and cared for and taken care of."
If someone's considering foster care or adoption, what words of advice do you have for them?
So if you're considering opening up your home to fostering, into adoption, just know that there's such a tremendous need for loving, stable homes, and really to look into it and search your heart of hearts, because it's not for the weak of heart. There's a lot of healing and a lot of therapy and a lot of work that goes into it all. But it's also, I feel, very, very rewarding, especially to keep a sibling group together.
Any final thoughts?
I just am reminded every day of what a sweet blessing our children are, all of them. And what a gift God has given our family to be able to keep these children together and to raise them and love them as our own. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming and sharing your story.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of Part of the Journey. Tracy's story talked about a special kind of love, a love of parents for children who initially weren't their own, but became their own after a journey of fostering and adoption. That reminded me of a passage from 1 John chapter 3, verse 1. See what great love the Father has lavished on us, that we should be called children of God. And that is what we are. No matter what our family background is, we are all God's children, and He loves each one of us dearly. That's all for this episode. Use the buttons below to like and share. Be sure to hit subscribe so that you'll be notified when our next episode drops.